There is a silence that waits for every single one of us. A final, freezing heartbeat where the biological machinery of the body grinds to a halt and the lights behind the eyes flicker out forever. For as long as humanity has possessed the consciousness to understand its own mortality, we have been paralyzed by the terror of this unknown, filling the void with stories, with rituals, and most importantly, with faces. We tell ourselves that when the end comes, we will not be stepping into an empty abyss, but rather into the waiting arms of a guide, a judge, or a king. We have crafted gods of death not merely to explain the cessation of life, but to negotiate with it, to give structure to the chaos of decay, and to promise ourselves that our ethical choices in this world will echo in the next. But who are these entities really? Are they monsters waiting to devour the soul? Or are they the only friends we will have when the breathing stops? Today we begin a journey into the dark valleys of the human imagination, peeling back the layers of history to stand face to face with the architects of the afterlife. We will walk through the Hall of Two Truths, swim the freezing rivers of the Greek underworld, and stare into the eyes of entities that have haunted our collective nightmares for thousands of years. But be warned, because as we explore these ancient pantheons, you might find that the face of death looks uncomfortably familiar, and that the judgment awaiting us is far more complex than a simple choice between heaven and hell. In the blistering heat of ancient Egypt, where the sun was a hammer that beat down upon the living, death was not seen as an end, but as a treacherous journey that required a navigator. Enter Anubis, the guardian of the horizon, the entity who prowled the necropolises of the Old Kingdom long before the pyramids pierced the sky. To understand Anubis, you must first understand the jackal. The ancient Egyptians watched these sleek black canines scavenging in the shallow graves of the desert, digging up the dead. In a stroke of psychological genius, they took the creature they feared, the desecrator of graves, and transformed him into the ultimate protector of the grave. They fought fear with fear. Anubis is depicted not just with the head of a jackal, but with skin the color of rotting flesh and the fertile black soil of the Nile, symbolizing the paradox of decay and regeneration. He is the master of secrets, the surgeon of the sacred. When a body ceased to breathe, it was the priesthood of Anubis who donned the terrifying masks of the god to perform the rites of mummification. This was not a simple burial. It was a biological transmutation. Imagine the scent of frankincense and natron salt filling the air, the rhythmic chanting of spells, and the delicate, gruesome work of removing the organs to preserve the vessel for eternity. Anubis watched over every incision, ensuring that the physical anchor to the world remained intact so the soul, the Ka, could return. But his role as the embalmer was merely the preparation for his true purpose, a scene of such high-stakes drama that it defined the moral core of an entire civilization. The deceased did not simply walk into paradise. They were led by the cold hand of Anubis into the Hall of Maat. Picture a cavernous chamber, the air thick with the silence of judgment. At the center stands a massive set of scales, the machinery of cosmic order. On one side, Anubis places the heart of the deceased, the Ibju, which was believed to contain every thought, every memory, and every sin committed in life. On the other side, he places a single ostrich feather, the symbol of Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic harmony. This is the first courtroom drama in human history. The tension in this moment is absolute. If the heart is heavy, weighed down by guilt, corruption, lies, and cruelty, the scales tip. The soul is not sent to a fire, but is instantly devoured by Amit, a chimerical monstrosity waiting in the shadows. This is non-existence, the true death. But if the heart balances perfectly with the feather, if the life was lived with lightness and integrity, Anubis guides the soul forward. He is the silent arbiter who ensures that entrance to the field of reeds is earned, not given. He is the comfort in the dark, the assurance that justice exists beyond the grave, and that chaos cannot touch the righteous. Yet Anubis is the gatekeeper, not the king. That title belongs to a figure whose own story is a brutal testament to the vulnerability of the gods themselves. Osiris. Before he was the lord of the dead, Osiris was a mortal king, a beacon of civilization who taught humanity agriculture and law. But his perfection bred a poisonous envy in his brother Set, the god of chaos and storms. The betrayal of Osiris is one of the oldest tragedies in mythology, a Cain and Abel story played out on a divine scale. Set did not just kill his brother, he orchestrated a coup of deception, tricking Osiris into lying down in a beautifully crafted coffin before sealing it shut with molten lead and casting it into the Nile. The cruelty escalated when Set later discovered the body, tearing the god into 14 pieces and scattering his bloody remains across the length of Egypt. This act of dismemberment was meant to be the end of hope, the triumph of chaos over order. But death in Egypt is never the final word. Through the agonizing grief and powerful magic of his wife Isis, the pieces were gathered. In a ritual of supreme love and necromancy, Osiris was reassembled and resurrected. However, he did not return to the land of the living. He was changed. He returned as the green god, the mummified king, the ruler of the Duat. Osiris represents a profound shift in how we view the afterlife. He is the promise that death is not a wall, but a door. Because he suffered, died, and rose again, he offers the same possibility to every human soul. He is not a distant, terrifying monster. He is a king who has endured the trauma of mortality. When the dead arrive in his throne room, after surviving the judgment of Anubis, they see a face that understands their pain. His green skin symbolizes the fertility of the Nile flood, the life that springs from the mud of death. He embodies the cyclical nature of the universe, where every sunset promises a sunrise, and every death feeds new life. To the peasant working the fields and the pharaoh sitting on the throne, Osiris was the ultimate assurance that the grave was merely a cocoon. He transformed the terrifying concept of annihilation into a hopeful journey of becoming. He is the silence of the seed underground, waiting for the spring. As we leave the sun-drenched sands of Egypt and cross the Mediterranean to the rocky, olive-strewn hills of Greece, the atmosphere shifts. The Greek conception of death is less about the preservation of the body and more about the inevitable separation of the shadow from the self. Here we encounter Thanatos, a figure who defies the modern image of the grim reaper. In a culture obsessed with heroism, violence, and glorious combat, Thanatos is surprisingly, almost disturbingly, gentle. Born of Nyx, the primordial night, and Erebus, the deep darkness, Thanatos is the twin brother of Hypnos, the god of sleep. This familial connection is not accidental. It is a philosophical observation. To the Greeks, sleep and death were two sides of the same coin, one temporary, one permanent, but both involving a slipping away of consciousness. Thanatos is not the violent death of the battlefield. That belongs to the Keres, blood-drinking spirits of slaughter. Thanatos is the death that comes in the night, the peaceful expiration of breath, the quiet closing of the eyes. He is often depicted as a beautiful winged youth, carrying an inverted torch, the flame pointing down, representing the extinguishing of life without violence. There is a serene, almost bureaucratic efficiency to Thanatos. He is not malicious. He does not hate humanity. He simply has a job to do. He serves the fates, the Moirai, who spin and cut the thread of life. When the thread is cut, Thanatos descends on silent wings to guide the shade to the banks of the river Styx. He is the inescapable conclusion, the period at the end of the sentence. In a world ruled by capricious, emotional, and often cruel Olympian gods, Thanatos is reliable. He cannot be bribed. He cannot be reasoned with. He is the ultimate equalizer, treating the king and the beggar with the same silent touch. His presence is a reminder that death is a natural law, as fundamental as gravity, and that to fear it is to fear the sunset. He offers a release from the burdens of existence, a drift into the eternal twilight where pain and struggle cease. But Thanatos is merely the ferryman's escort. The destination is the domain of a god who has been slandered by centuries of misunderstanding. Hades. In the modern mind, influenced by Christian theology, we often equate the underworld with hell and its ruler with the devil. This is a gross distortion of the Greek worldview. Hades is not evil. He is stern, just, and incredibly lonely. He is the eldest son of the titan Cronus, a brother to Zeus and Poseidon. When the universe was divided among the three brothers after the great war against the Titans, they drew lots. Zeus won the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades drew the short straw, the dark, sunless realm beneath the earth. He was not banished there for wickedness. He was simply the administrator assigned to the hardest district. Hades is the wealthy one, the Pluton, because all the riches of the earth, the gold, the silver, the gems, lie within his domain. But his true wealth is the souls of the dead, a population that only ever increases. The realm of Hades is a vast, complex geography of the soul. It is not a monolithic pit of fire. It contains the Elysian fields, a paradise of eternal spring for the heroic and the virtuous. It contains the asphodel meadows, a gray, misty limbo for the vast majority of humanity who were neither great nor terrible, where souls drift like aimless smoke. And yes, it contains Tartarus, the deep abyss of punishment for those who offended the gods. Hades presides over all of it with a stoic, unwavering adherence to the law. He is the jailer who ensures that the balance is kept, that the dead do not return to trouble the living. His terrifying reputation comes not from cruelty, but from his finality. Once you enter his gates, guarded by the three-headed hound Cerberus, you do not leave. He is the wall against which all human ambition eventually crashes. Yet even in this kingdom of shadows, there is a story of desperate passion that altered the seasons of the world. The abduction of Persephone is the central myth of Hades, revealing the aching solitude of the Dark King. He saw Persephone, the daughter of the harvest goddess Demeter, and he took her, not to destroy her, but to make her a queen. This act of violence broke the heart of the world above. Demeter's grief plunged the earth into the first winter, killing the crops and freezing the land. The compromise that followed, that Persephone would spend half the year in the underworld and half above, created the cycle of the seasons. It transformed Hades from a static jailer into a participant in the rhythm of life. When Persephone is with him, the world dies. When she leaves, it blooms. Even the god of death is bound to the power of love and loss. Hades remains a figure of profound dignity, a reminder that the end of life is not a punishment, but a destiny that even the gods must respect. He sits on his ebony throne, not mocking us, but waiting for us, the silent custodian of everything that has ever lived. Leave the sun-drenched vineyards of the Mediterranean behind, for the path now leads north, away from the stone temples of logic, and into the howling, freezing gales of the Scandinavian wild. Here, the concept of death undergoes a brutal transformation. It is no longer a philosophical transition or a bureaucratic weighing of souls. It is a binary existence carved out of ice and blood. In the Norse worldview, how you die is infinitely more important than how you lived. And the afterlife is not a singular destination, but a segregated system based on glory. To understand this, we must first descend into the mist, down the root of the world tree, to a realm that terrified the Vikings more than any blade or fire. Welcome to Helheim, the kingdom of the unworthy. This is the domain of Hel, a goddess who stands as one of the most visually arresting and psychologically disturbing figures in all of mythology. She is the daughter of Loki, the trickster, and Angerboda, a giantess of the iron wood, born of a union between chaos and wild magic. When the Aesir gods first looked upon her, they did not see a child. They saw an omen. They cast her down into the deepest, coldest root of the cosmos, Niflheim, and gave her dominion over 9 worlds of the dead. But Hel is not a prisoner. She is a sovereign of absolute authority. Imagine standing before her throne in the hall known as Eljudnir, meaning damp with sleet. The air here is not hot with hellfire. It is heavy with the moisture of the grave, a bone-chilling dampness that rots the spirit. Hel herself is a walking nightmare of duality, a living testament to the threshold between existence and oblivion. On one side of her body, she is a stunning woman, vibrant with the flush of life, her skin warm and eyes bright. But as your gaze crosses the meridian of her spine, the illusion shatters. The other half of her body is a corpse in advanced decomposition, shriveled, blue-black flesh, smelling of wet earth and decay, with muscle falling from bone. She is not cruel, nor is she particularly kind. She is simply the inevitable reality of what happens to biological matter when the spark is gone. Her cutlery is named starvation, her knife is famine, and her bed is sickness. She rules over those who die the straw death, the shameful, quiet death of old age, illness, or accident. In a culture that fetishized bravery, Helheim was the ultimate dumping ground for the mediocre. It is a place of gray stagnation, a foggy eternity where billions of souls drift in a silent, misty malaise, realizing that because they did not burn bright in life, they are doomed to fade slowly in the dark. Hel watches over them with her half-dead eye, a passive guardian who ensures that the mundane dead are kept safely away from the halls of the gods. But look up. Far above the misty stagnation of Helheim, the sky is tearing open with the sound of thunder and the beating of massive wings. For the chosen few, death is not a descent into the damp earth, but an abduction into the sky. This is the domain of Odin, the All-Father, the terrifying, one-eyed lord of ecstasy and war. Odin is unique among death gods because he does not simply wait for souls to arrive. He actively hunts for them. He is not a shepherd, he is a recruiter. The battlefield is his harvest ground. As the clash of steel rings out and blood turns the mud into a slippery slaughterhouse, Odin rides above the carnage on Sleipnir, his eight-legged steed, accompanied by the Valkyries. These are not the gentle angels of Victorian paintings. They are choosers of the slain, fierce, armor-clad spirits who scan the dying for the spark of violence and courage. They are looking for the Einherjar, the army of one. Why does the king of the gods concern himself with the souls of mortals? Because Odin is a god living on borrowed time. He knows the prophecy of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, where the cosmos will burn and he will face the great wolf, Fenrir. He is terrified. Every action he takes, every war he incites among humans, is a desperate attempt to stockpile soldiers for the final apocalypse. He needs the strongest, the fastest, and the most vicious warriors to stand between him and the void. Those chosen by the Valkyries are carried to Valhalla, the hall of the slain in Asgard. But let us strip away the romanticism. Valhalla is not heaven. It is a barracks. It is a place of eternal, looping violence. The warriors feast on the regenerating flesh of the beast Seirimnir and drink mead from the udders of the goat Heidrun, only to wake up every morning and hack each other to pieces in training exercises, dying and resurrecting by dinner time. It is a golden cage of glorious bloodshed, a paradise designed solely for the psychopaths of history who found their meaning in the swing of an axe. Odin sits at the high table, feeding his wolves Geri and Freki, his single eye scanning the rows of dead warriors, calculating if he has enough souls to survive the end of the world. In the Norse mind, death was a mobilization, a promotion to a higher tier of warfare. We now leave the icy determinism of the north and travel thousands of miles east, across the steppes and over the Himalayas, to the humid, incense-heavy air of the Indian subcontinent. Here, the view of death shifts dramatically from a recruitment drive to a cosmic courtroom of absolute moral precision. In the vast and ancient pantheons of Hinduism and Buddhism, we meet Yama, the Lord of Dharma, the King of Justice. Yama holds a unique distinction in mythology. He is said to be the first mortal who ever died. Because he blazed the trail into the unknown, he became the ruler of the destination. He is the pioneer of mortality. But unlike the passive Hel or the desperate Odin, Yama is a bureaucrat of terrifying efficiency. He is often depicted with green or blue skin, dressed in red robes, riding a massive water buffalo, a symbol of raw, unbridled power that he has tamed. In his hand, he holds a noose, the lasso of death. This is not a weapon of war, but a tool of capture. When the designated time arrives, determined not by Yama's whim, but by the mathematical expiration of one's lifespan, he or his messengers, the Yamadutas, cast this noose to extract the soul, the Atman, from the physical body, dragging it physically and spiritually to the realm of Yamaloka. The terror of Yama does not come from his appearance, which can be fearsome with fangs and glaring eyes, but from his function. He is the mirror that cannot lie. Upon arrival in his hall, the soul is not judged by Yama's personal opinion. Instead, Yama turns to his scribe, Chitragupta. Imagine a book that contains a perfect, uneditable log of every nanosecond of your existence. Every thought you kept secret, every dollar you stole, every kindness you performed, every insect you crushed. It is all recorded in the ledger of Agrasandani. This is the concept of karma operationalized. There is no bargaining here. You cannot plead ignorance. You cannot bribe the judge. Yama simply reads the balance sheet. If your sins outweigh your virtues, the punishment is tailored with ironic, horrific precision in the various narakas, or hells. If you were a liar, you might be dragged to a realm where your tongue is endlessly pierced. If you were a glutton, you might be starved, while surrounded by food you cannot eat. But, and this is the crucial difference, Yama's hells are not eternal. They are correctional facilities. They are the washing machine of the soul. Once the karmic debt is paid through suffering, the soul is released to be reborn, to try again, to spin the wheel of samsara once more. Yama represents the ultimate accountability. In a world that often feels chaotic and unfair, where the wicked prosper and the good suffer, Yama is the theological promise that the universe is keeping score. He is the Lord of order in a chaotic cosmos. He teaches that death is not an escape from consequence, but the moment where consequence catches up to you. His presence is a reminder that we are building our afterlife, brick by brick, with every choice we make today. He is the stern father who punishes not out of malice, but out of a necessity to purify the spirit for its next journey. He forces us to ask the most uncomfortable question of all. If your life was read back to you right now, page by page, would you be able to stand the weight of your own story? If you thought the frozen silence of the Norse underworld was the pinnacle of suffering, you have not yet set foot in the steaming, blood-soaked jungles of the ancient Mesoamerican imagination. We now cross the ocean to a civilization that did not fear death so much as they integrated it into the very machinery of the universe, fueling the sun with the beating hearts of the living. Here, in the Aztec cosmology, the afterlife was not a reward for good behavior, nor was it a punishment for sin. It was a grueling, ultra-violent marathon of endurance. Welcome to Mictlan, the place of the dead. This is not a metaphysical state of being. It is a geographic location, the deepest, darkest pit of the cosmos, presided over by a figure who makes the Grim Reaper look like a children's toy. Mictlantecuhtli. His name alone sounds like the grinding of bones. He is the Lord of Mictlan, and his appearance is designed to shatter the human mind. Imagine a towering figure, his body a stripped-down cage of ribs and vertebrae, entirely skeletal, yet moving with the weight and power of a living god. He is not dressed in silks or armor, but in the raw trophies of his trade. He wears a necklace not of gold, but of human eyeballs, staring out in every direction, a grotesque reminder that in his realm you are always being watched. Adorned with owl feathers, the birds considered the harbingers of doom, he sits in a windowless darkness, waiting for the inevitable arrival of the masses. The horror of the Aztec afterlife lies in its inclusivity. Unlike the exclusive Valhalla or the moral sorting of Egypt, Mictlan was the default destination for almost everyone. Unless you died in childbirth or on the battlefield, you were coming here. But dying was the easy part. The soul's arrival in Mictlan marked the beginning of a 4-year odyssey of terror. This was not a passive rest. It was a desperate trek across 9 levels of hellish landscapes that mirrored the trials of life itself. The soul had to cross rivers of blood, navigate between crashing mountains that sought to crush travelers like insects, and endure winds so sharp they slashed the skin like obsidian blades. Mictlantecuhtli watched this struggle with a cold, skeletal grin. He represents the absolute inevitability of decay. He is the guardian of bones, the hoarder of calcium and marrow. In the Aztec mind, bones were not waste, they were seeds. The legend goes that the gods themselves had to steal bones from Mictlantecuhtli to create the current race of humans. He is the jealous banker of the biological building blocks of life, demanding bloodletting and sacrifice from the living to appease his hunger and ensure that the cosmic cycle does not grind to a halt. Ruling beside this nightmare of ossified rage is a queen of equal power and perhaps even greater cultural resonance. Mictlantecuhtli, the Lady of the Dead. While her husband embodies the terror of the end, she embodies the memory of what was lost. She too is depicted as a skeletal figure, often with a gaping jaw to swallow the stars during the day. But her role is custodial. She is the ultimate guardian of the ancestral remains, the protector of the bones that lie in the earth. It is through her influence that the terror of Mictlan is softened into a ritual of remembrance. She presides over the ancient festivals of the dead, the vibrant, marigold-strewn celebrations that have survived conquest and time to evolve into the modern Dia de los Muertos. She is the bridge. During these sacred days, the veil thins, and Mictlantecuhtli grants the dead a furlough, allowing them to slip back through the curtain of reality to feast on the essence of food and the love of their descendants. In this duality of the skeletal king and queen, the Aztecs captured a profound truth. Death is a horrific physical reality of decay, represented by Mictlantecuhtli, but it is also a social reality of memory and continuity, held together by Mictlantecuhtli. Now let the heavy, humid air of the jungle dissipate, and watch as a thick, supernatural fog rolls in from the east. We travel to the islands of Japan, where the view of death shifts from a physical ordeal to a psychological haunting. Here we do not find a single omnipotent monarch of the underworld, but a class of beings that are as ambiguous as they are unsettling. The Shinigami. The word itself whispers with menace. Kami, meaning God or spirit, and Shini, meaning death. But these are not gods in the Western sense of rulers. They are functionaries of the end. They are the spirits of death, ethereal and often formless, existing in the peripheral vision of humanity. The origins of the Shinigami are murky, a complex blend of imported Buddhist demons and indigenous Shinto animism, creating an entity that feels less like a character and more like a phenomenon. They are neither purely evil nor purely good. They are ambivalent, operating on a morality that is alien to human emotions. The Shinigami are the masters of the timeline. Their duty is to verify the expiration date of a human life. They hang in the air, invisible and silent, waiting for the candle to burn down. But there is a darker folklore associated with them, a whisper that they do not just watch, but influence. It is said that the Shinigami can possess a human mind, planting the seed of death, leading a person toward their own demise when their time is near or unavoidable. They are the urge to jump, the lapse in concentration at the wheel, the sudden surrender to the void. They maintain the balance of existence, ensuring that souls are harvested to keep the wheel of reincarnation turning. Unlike the brutal Mictlantecuhtli, who wants your bones, the Shinigami wants your narrative. They ferry the soul through a spiritual passage, a time of reflection where the deceased must confront the reality of their past life before moving on to the next stage of existence. They are the eerie silence in the room after the last breath is drawn, the feeling of being watched from the shadows, the personification of the moment when the biological clock strikes midnight. From the quiet, misty ambiguity of Japan, we are suddenly thrown into a chaotic, rum-soaked celebration at the crossroads of the spirit world. The air fills with the smell of strong tobacco, burning peppers, and the rhythmic pounding of drums. We are in the domain of Haitian voodoo, staring into the face of the most charismatic and disruptive death god in history, Baron Samedi. He is unmistakable. He does not hide in the shadows. He struts into the light, wearing a formal black tailcoat and a top hat, his face painted to resemble a skull, appearing like an undertaker prepared for a funeral that has turned into a riot. Baron Samedi is the Loa of the dead, the head of the Gede family of spirits. He is the master of the cemetery, but more importantly, he is the lord of the crossroads, the precise metaphysical point where the world of the living intersects with the world of the dead. Baron Samedi shatters the stereotype of the somber, weeping death deity. He is loud, lewd, and uncontrollably alive for a dead man. He is often depicted clutching a bottle of rum laced with hot peppers, smoking a fat cigar, and hurling obscenities that would make a sailor blush. But do not mistake his antics for foolishness. This behavior is a calculated defiance. By mocking the sanctity of death, he strips it of its terror. He reminds us that the grave is the great equalizer, and that in the face of the inevitable, the only rational response is to laugh, drink, and live with ferocious intensity. His crude humor is a teaching tool, a reminder of the raw, messy vitality of life. Yet behind the sunglasses and the swagger, he is a fiercely protective entity. He ensures that the dead are not disturbed, that the rites are respected, and that decomposing bodies are not desecrated or used for dark magic. He stands at the gate between worlds, a bouncer for the afterlife, ensuring that no soul crosses over before their appointed time. If Baron Samedi refuses to dig your grave, you cannot die, no matter how sick or injured you are. He is the chaotic, hilarious, terrifying friend you want in your corner when the lights go out, the one who will pour you a drink and guide you through the darkness with a dirty joke and a steady hand. From the rum-soaked crossroads of Haiti, we now travel back across the Atlantic, returning to the cradle of Western Empire. But this time, we look beneath the marble columns and the grand legions. In the Roman mind, the underworld was not merely a place of ghosts. It was the vault of the empire's true power. Enter Pluto. While often dismissed as a mere copy of the Greek Hades, Pluto represents a distinct and fascinating evolution in the psychology of death. His name is derived from the term Plutus, meaning wealth, a linguistic connection that reveals a profound Roman truth. Everything of value comes from the earth, and to the earth it must return. Pluto is the lord of the hidden riches. He is not just the jailer of souls. He is the cosmic banker, the silent owner of every vein of gold, every diamond, and every seed waiting to sprout in the fertile soil. Imagine descending into a Roman mine, the air thick with dust and the clinking of pickaxes. To the miners, they were not just digging for metal. They were trespassing in the lobby of Pluto's palace. He is a subterranean king who sits on a throne of obsidian, surrounded not by fire, but by the glittering, silent potential of the earth. His demeanor is starkly different from the chaotic spirits of other pantheons. Pluto is a benign, almost stoic figure. He does not revel in suffering. He represents the necessary darkness that precedes growth, the winter that allows for the spring. His realm is a place of dualities. It is the final resting place of the dead, yes, but it is also the womb of the earth's abundance. In the Roman worldview, death was inextricably linked to the economy of nature. The decay of the past feeds the prosperity of the future. Pluto stands as the solemn guarantor of this exchange, a reminder that death is the price we pay for the richness of life. Now, let the silence of the Roman mines be shattered by a scream that tears across the mist-covered battlefields of ancient Ireland. We are entering the domain of the Celts, a people who saw the divine in the raw, bloody chaos of war. Here, death does not arrive as a quiet ferryman. She arrives as a blackbird circling over the dying. She is the Morrigan, the Phantom Queen. This is one of the most enigmatic and terrifying entities in all of folklore. She is not a single goddess, but a shape-shifting force of nature, often manifesting as a trio of sisters, Bav, Maka, and Nemain, representing the different, horrific faces of conflict. She is the fury of the fight, the sovereignty of the land, and the panic that grips a soldier's heart before the final blow is struck. Picture a warrior standing in the mud, his breath misting in the cold air, waiting for the charge. He looks up and sees a single crow perched on a gnarled branch, staring at him with intelligent black eyes. A chill runs down his spine that has nothing to do with the cold. He knows he is looking at the Morrigan. She is the harbinger. Her presence means that the thread of fate has been pulled taut. She is not just a spectator. She is an active participant in the slaughter, flying over the battlefield to instill courage in her favorites and doom in her enemies. Her ability to traverse the veil between the other world and the physical realm makes her the ultimate guide of souls. But she guides them through the violent gateway of war. To the Celts, she was the personification of the terrifying truth that life and death are decided not by fairness, but by the unpredictable, chaotic whims of fate. She is the shadow on the field, the caw of the raven, the beautiful, terrible face of sovereignty, demanding blood for the land. Just across the Irish Sea, in the green, rolling valleys of Wales, the concept of death takes on a hauntingly different tone. It is not the frenzied chaos of the battlefield, but the thrill of the hunt. This is the realm of Aran, the ruler of Anun. Unlike the dreary gray pits of other mythologies, Anun is a paradox, a paradise of the dead. It is described as a land of eternal youth, where sickness does not exist and food is abundant. But do not mistake this for a Christian heaven. It is a mystic, elusive otherworld that sits just sideways to our own reality. Aran is a king of honor and magic, a fair ruler who maintains the delicate balance of this twilight kingdom. But Aran is not always in his castle. As the leaves turn brown and the nights grow longer in autumn and winter, the Welsh legends speak of a terrifying sound drifting on the wind, the baying of hounds. These are the Cwn Annwn, the hounds of Aran. They are spectral beasts, white as snow with ears as red as blood, colors that signify their supernatural origin. Aran rides with them, traversing the skies in a cosmic hunt that mirrors the seasonal decay of the world. This is the wild hunt. But Aran is not hunting for sport. He is hunting for souls. He is a psychopomp, guiding the spirits of the dead from the mortal coil to the safety of Annwn. Yet he is also a judge. It is said that those who meet him are weighed, and while he is a protector, he is also an agent of retribution for those who have transgressed the moral laws. Aran embodies the mystery of the Welsh landscape, the fog that hides the path, and the comforting yet eerie notion that death is simply a step into a stranger, more magical kingdom. We must now leave the green isles of Europe and travel back to the very dawn of written history, to the cradle of civilization between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. In ancient Mesopotamia, there was no paradise awaiting the dead. There was only Irkalla, the house of dust. Ruling over this bleak, inexorable domain is Ereshkigal, the queen of the great below. Her power is absolute and terrifying. In the Mesopotamian worldview, death was a great leveler. Kings and slaves alike descended into her realm to exist in darkness, clad in feathers like birds, eating dust and clay for eternity. Ereshkigal is the personification of this harsh reality. She is not evil, she is necessary. She is the force that enforces the laws of nature, a strict, implacable ruler who ensures that once a soul enters her 7 gates, they never leave. Her mythic significance is cemented in the epic tale of Inanna's descent. When Inanna, the Queen of Heaven, dared to encroach on the underworld, it was Ereshkigal who stripped her of her powers, piece by piece, gate by gate, until the goddess of life stood naked and bowed before the throne of death. Ereshkigal struck her sister dead and hung her corpse on a hook like a piece of meat. This is a visceral depiction of death's supremacy over life. Yet Ereshkigal is also a mother figure of the earth. The underworld is a place of gestation, the dark soil from which the waters of life spring. Her solitude was eventually broken by Nergal, the god of war, plague, and scorching sun. Their union is one of the most telling in mythology. Nergal, representing the violent, destructive force of heat and disease, became the consort of Ereshkigal, the passive force of entropy. Together they rule the dead, a king and queen symbolizing the brutal ways life ends, through violence and through decay. Nergal, with his mace and lion symbols, enforces the transition, while Ereshkigal maintains the house. They remind us that civilization, for all its walls and writing, is ultimately built on dust. Finally, we turn north again, to the vast snow-swept forests of the Slavic lands. Here, in the long, brutal nights of winter, the people whispered the name of a god who was the very antithesis of hope, Chernobog. His name literally translates to the Black God. In the dualistic cosmology of the Slavs, the universe was a battlefield between Belobog, the white god of light, and Chernobog, the dark deity of woe. Chernobog is not a judge. He is a calamity. He is the personification of misfortune, cold, and pure malevolence. He is the shadow that lengthens across the snow, the bad luck that sours the milk and freezes the blood. Depicted as a demonic, shadowy figure, Chernobog represents the primal fear of the dark. He is the god you do not pray to for blessings. You pray to him only to beg him to stay away. During the winter festivals, ancient rituals involved spitting curses into a bowl, symbolically offering the community's evil to Chernobog to absorb, acknowledging his role as the magnet for all things dark. He stands as a stark reminder that in the ancient world, death and darkness were not always seen as neutral forces of nature, but sometimes as active, predatory entities that required constant vigilance to survive. From the frozen dread of the Slavic winter, the rhythm of the story changes. Can you hear it? It is the deep, resonant thrum of the bata drums echoing through the humidity of West Africa. We are standing in the spiritual heartland of the Yoruba people, where death is not a chaotic accident, but a divine appointment. Here we meet Iku. He is not a devil. He is not a mistake. He is the personification of the inevitable. In the Yoruba cosmology, the universe is a delicate negotiation between the physical and the spiritual, and Iku is the final arbiter of that contract. He does not strike at random. He moves with the precision of a surgeon, arriving only when Olorun, the supreme creator, has signed the decree. Imagine the atmosphere of a village when the presence of Iku is felt. The sudden drop in temperature, the silence of the birds, the undeniable weight in the air. He is the removal of the spirit, the force that extracts the essence so it can return to the source. His role is terrifying because it is absolute, but it is also revered because it maintains the balance. Without Iku, the world would be stagnant, choked by endlessness. He is the hard reset of the cosmos, the reminder that destiny is written in stone, and when the ancestors call, Iku is the one who opens the door. We ascend now, climbing higher than the clouds, up the jagged, breath-stealing peaks of the Andes Mountains. In the thin air of the Inca Empire, where the earth touches the sky, resides Supay. He is the lord of Ukupacha, the inner world. To the Andean people, the ground beneath their feet was not just rock. It was a living, hungry kingdom. Supay is a deity of profound duality. On one hand, he is the master of demons, the commander of the Supaikuna, spirits that haunt the dark corners of the valleys. He is fearsome, depicted with horns and staring eyes, a figure that demands respect through fear. But shift your perspective, and you see his other face. Supay is the owner of the earth's veins. Every ounce of gold, every shimmering emerald, every potato that grows in the terrace farms belongs to him. He is the god of death, yes, but he is also the god of fertility and wealth. This creates a complex relationship with the living. They fear him, yet they must dance for him. In the riotous festivals of the highlands, dancers don the masks of Supay, embracing the devil to bargain for safety and abundance. It is a recognition that life feeds on death, and wealth is dug from the same darkness where we bury our dead. The wind carries us north again, to the land of 1,000 lakes and endless birch forests. In the somber twilight of Finland, we find Tuonela, the kingdom of Tuoni. The Finnish afterlife is a masterpiece of melancholic beauty. It is not a fire pit. It is a gray, silent island surrounded by a black river filled with poisonous swans. Tuoni, the master of this realm, is a figure of intrinsic, stony respect. He is not a torturer, he is a host. Along with his wife, Tuonetar, he runs the underworld like a somber family business. The dead do not suffer here. They simply exist in a shadowed version of their former lives, washing their clothes in the dark water, sitting in the dim halls, waiting out eternity. The horror of Tuoni is not pain, but apathy. It is the fear that death is simply a dull, gray continuation of the mundane, stripped of color and joy. To the ancient Finns, Tuoni was a reminder that the vibrancy of life is fleeting, and the end is a long, quiet sleep in a cold room. Across the globe, on the tropical slopes of Mount Majas in the Philippines, a different kind of measurement is taking place. In Visayan mythology, the god Sidapa does not wait for you to die. He decides exactly how long you have left. Imagine a colossal tree reaching into the heavens, its branches heavy not with fruit, but with the names of every living human. Sidapa stands beneath this tree, his eyes scanning the leaves. He is the Great Pruner. With a gesture, he marks a lifespan, deciding that this soul will live for 80 years, and that one for only 20. He is the measurer of mortality. This image is hauntingly beautiful and terrifying. The idea that your days are physically counted on a leaf in a divine forest, and that death is simply the moment Sidapa decides your branch has grown long enough. It strips away the illusion of control, placing the duration of our existence in the hands of a god who watches from the mountain peak. In the forests of Lithuania, the atmosphere turns sharp and stinging. Here stalks Giltine. Once, she was a goddess of beauty, a sister to the god of luck. But the nature of her work transformed her. Now, she is the Grim Reaper in its most primal form. A skeletal woman with a long, blue, poisonous tongue, wandering the world to lick the life out of the dying. She is the sting of death. Her transition from a nurturing figure to a monster mirrors the human psychological reaction to death. What we once accept as natural eventually becomes the thing we fear most. She does not negotiate. She is the sudden heart attack, the fatal stroke, the moment the body fails. Guillotine is the personification of the physical trauma of dying, the guillotine, or sting, that severs the soul from the flesh. Further east, in the bustling administrative perfection of the Korean afterlife, death puts on a black hat. Meet the Jeoseung Saja. He is not a monster, he is a bureaucrat. Dressed in the traditional black hanbok and a wide-brimmed gat hat, pale-faced and emotionless, he is the emissary of the netherworld. He is the ultimate civil servant of the cosmos. When he appears by your bedside, 3 times calling your name, it is not a battle, it is an arrest. He holds a book with your name on it. There is no running because you cannot outrun the paperwork of the universe. He guides the soul through the treacherous path to the afterlife, not with malice, but with efficiency. He represents the Korean understanding of death as a legal transfer of jurisdiction. a formal process where you are moved from the registry of the living to the registry of the dead. Finally, we arrive at the root of all darkness. In the ancient Persian dualism of Zoroastrianism, we confront Angra Mainyu, also known as Ahriman. This is not just a god of death. This is the anti-god. He is the destructive spirit, the cosmic opposite of Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom. Angra Mainyu is the grandfather of the devil archetype. He did not just create death. He introduced rot, disease, lies, and decay into a perfect world. Every time a body decomposes, every time a mind snaps, every time a tragedy occurs, it is the handiwork of Angra Mainyu. He is the active force of entropy that seeks to unmake existence. He turns the natural transition of death into a spiritual war zone. He reminds us that for thousands of years, humanity has felt that death is not just a biological stopping point, but an enemy, a thief that must be fought until the end of time. We have walked through the valleys of the dead, looked into the eyes of jackals, skeletons, and bureaucrats, and listened to the silence of the grave across a dozen cultures. We tell ourselves that these are just stories, ancient coping mechanisms for a primitive fear. We like to think we have outgrown them. We have replaced Anubis with defibrillators, Yama with life support systems, and the Valkyries with cryogenic freezing. We have sanitized death, pushed it into sterile white rooms, and hidden it behind the curtain of modern medicine. We convince ourselves that if we just jog enough, eat enough kale, and upgrade our technology, we can ghost the Reaper. But here is the twist, the irony that has been staring us in the face the entire time. These ancient gods, terrifying as they were, offered us something our modern world refuses to give: validation. Mictlantecuhtli promised that your struggle meant something. Yama promised that your choices had weight. Odin promised that your bravery would be remembered. By creating these monsters, our ancestors were actually admitting a profound truth, that life is finite, and because it ends, it has value. In our rush to deny death, to treat it as a technical glitch to be fixed, we have accidentally devalued life. We live in a state of distracted immortality, scrolling through infinite feeds, wasting hours as if we have an endless supply of them, because we have killed the gods who held the clock. We are not afraid of the skeleton in the cloak. We are afraid of the silence he brings, because in that silence we might realize we haven't actually lived. So I leave you with this choice. It is the only choice that matters. Do you want to live in the comfortable modern lie that you have forever, drifting through a gray fog like the souls in Helheim? Or do you want to invite the Shinigami into your peripheral vision, acknowledge the ticking clock of Siddhapa, and live with the ferocious, desperate intensity of someone who knows the door is closing? The gods of death are waiting. But the question isn't when they will come for you. The question is, when they finally knock, will you have a story worth telling them? If you want to survive the next chapter, where we explore the things that refuse to die, the vampires, the Draugr, and the revenants, hit that subscribe button. The grave is deep, but our journey is just beginning.